Welcome back to the Creative Nonsense Podcast. This is episode 9 after a short delay. Today I'll be talking with Maiga Vidal about her music and songwriting and general creative processes. I think I fixed the audio that was on my side. There's like so many things plugged in. My computer's always confused about what's going on exactly.
I'm sure you also have all soundproofed in the back. It's pretty nice.
Soundproof. This is like a little divider thing that I got for like $35 on eBay, and then the sound foam's $12, so
it's not bad. That's
just
actually
hot
not
glue it
bad.
up.
Actually, I might steal that idea from you.
It works really well. I used to have a piece of cardboard against my window that had all the sound foam hot glued on it, so This was a significant improvement.
Nice. Yeah, I record music, and it's like I was listening back one night, and I'm like, I can hear the fan whirling. Like, I don't have the AC on. Like, I'm dying, right, recording this, making sure there's no sound. But, like, the fan, like, the quietest fan, just like, just need it to be quiet and really dry.
I totally get that. I've lived in this apartment I'm going on my 3rd year now.
Wow.
So, I've lived in here a while.
But that means you only have, like, a year left of school, right?
Yeah, I'm in my senior year now. That's why I'm doing summer classes, because I didn't want to have 5 classes a semester. So I'm doing 3 in the summer and then have the other one.
I'm still, I was just telling my husband the other night, I was like, I still totally have nightmares about not graduating from college, because I used to have 2 morning classes. It was pre-calc and then theater, something English theater, like English lit, but it was like the play version of it. I was a theater major, and I never showed up. And maybe out of the 20 classes, I showed up like 8 times. I passed. Obviously, I graduated. But every morning, like, I'll wake up and I'll be like, did I miss? Wait, it's okay. I've been out of college like a couple of years now. I'm not gonna die. Like, it's over for good. Somehow I managed to get by.
I fear that I'm gonna feel like that for a long time afterwards, just because of the fact that, like, even in like high school, like, I was always there like super early, and like I always had like tons of stuff to do. Like, I got to school in high school at like 7:30. Which is like not normal for people, because I was like a high achiever in high school, and I was like, I'm gonna be here 2 hours before so I can do homework, even though I had only slept like 5 hours before, and I was like, let's do more work. Like, that's the person I was.
Like, you do the poetry stuff, and then you do the podcast, and then I saw you did animation the other day, and I was like, oh my god, does she sleep? And then I watch your stories, and I'm like, no.
That is the
That's
answer.
The trick. She doesn't sleep. She just goes to school and then lives.
The good thing about getting my wisdom teeth out, at least, is that like they made me sleep. Like, I'm just exhausted. Like, I am so tired. So like the past 4 days, I've gotten more sleep than I have in such a long time. Like, I naturally woke up and it was just like, wow, no alarms.
You're like, wow, I feel so well rested.
Yeah,
no
but
need for coffee.
I have my online class stuff due in like the next 2 weeks, so I have like projects that I need to finish like every day up until then.
Oh my god.
So like there goes all that nice sleep that I enjoy.
Right.
So
it's like, I gotta cram all the sleep that I would have gotten into these 4 days.
Yeah.
I don't miss college at all, let me tell you that. I feel like I definitely flourished after college, for sure.
That's good.
I don't know, I don't think I flourished yet, but if I'm going to, it definitely wasn't during my college years.
Yeah, it's definitely good not to flourish during your college years, I feel like. Otherwise then that kind of like sets you up to be like, God, now what do I do? So.
Right, it's like so many of my friends were like so cool during college. I don't even know if we were friends, but definitely acquaintances, and like peaked, like everyone loved them. And then like, what are you doing now? Well, living. It's like, oh, but you were like the it, whereas like I was never the it, so now I get to figure it out, how to become the it later. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
that's like me seeing what I perceive as being like cool in college, like all the people hanging out with their friends. It's 3 a.m. on a Monday, they're eating out in the courtyard, having drinks, like having fun, or like the people who go on like the party buses and like hang out and things, and I'm in here in my apartment just like editing something, or
it's like a pretty lonely experience, I think, especially like to create online, like an online creator sort of thing. It's very lonely. because you're like making stuff that's in your mind but doesn't really exist and isn't even physical. Like, you know, like if, especially music, like it isn't physical, like you're just capturing sound waves somehow. And like, even when you're editing stuff on a computer, like it's not physical. You're just, all these things are kind of like in a different plane. And so I always feel like that. It's like a very lonely experience.
Yeah, in that vein, I'm really jealous of people who do like perform a lot. So like some people who I do know who are in like theater, and so like they're constantly like doing like their improv group stuff, or like they do like that actively constantly, and like have like a physical audience in front of them. And I'm like, I wonder if like I want that, but then I also really like the way that I create things, and like not having that, it feels almost like a completely different thing to like perform than to just like create something.
It's so true. And I feel like for me, like I have a lot of experience on the performing side, like, and then recently I've been more on the I create side. And so it's weird because like my feedback used to come from, right, like other people being like, oh, whatever you're doing is great or whatever you're doing sucks, whereas now it's like whatever I like my taste so much like dictates what I do. And I don't know if that's good or not, because I feel like I'm just making things for me, you know what I mean? Like, is somebody else gonna watch that? I don't know. I like it, I'll listen to it, or I'll watch it, you know. So it's like an interesting thing to make for no audience, almost like you wish they find you, but like if they don't, like that's not gonna stop me from making things, you know.
Yeah, we just had this same conversation in my Discord, because one of the people in there, Ronnie, was talking about their writing and saying like, sometimes I really want to write things like just for other people, like things that are popular, so that I know that someone will read them. But even if you make something that is like for a particular audience, they still might not read it. So you might as well write the thing that like you really want to write instead. Yeah,
it's so true. It's so true, especially like, and I'm doing this mostly from like a music thing now, but like I love like these 70s like icons, and so so I try to write in that vein because that's the music that I like. And I know that a lot of musicians are kind of going back to that acoustic sound, but popular music is like the opposite of that, like the complete opposite of acoustic music, right? So, you know, I went to a songwriting conference last week. Was it last week? Yeah. And, you know, like I played some of my demos and stuff. And, you know, the reception was okay. They were like, your lyrics are fine. I'm like, yes, I feel like that's the area that I do best. But, you know, they were like, this is not kind of what's on right now. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I might be doing niche for a while. Like, you know, unless Mumford & Sons, like, thing happens again. Like, I'm going to be playing niche for a while, you know? So I think it's just, somebody said that accepting to live in the, like, edges, accepting that maybe your part of the artistry is in the edges of where everything is. So I'm trying to learn to live with that, like the outskirts, you know? Mm-hmm. My name is Maiga Vidal. I'm originally from Van Nuys, California, although right now I'm living in Honolulu, Hawaii. My husband's stationed out here. I recently got married in November of last year, so being married has been kind of awesome. I am now, as of last month, a full-time musician. I used to actually have a day job as a data analyst in a hospital. That was my job. Very, like, corporate. But I knew that I always wanted to do music, and so I kind of funded myself. And then once I moved to Hawaii, you know, my job ended, obviously, and because he doesn't have so much time here, I didn't want to start another job and then move in a couple of months. So then I was like, he was like, you know, we can afford for you to kind of just commit to this thing. And so that's kind of what I've been doing. I've been committing to my dream, which is weird because I've been trying to live this double life of like, oh, very serious corporate job and artist, even though this was what I wanted to do. And so I guess now I can say that I'm a full-time artist. Does that mean I'm making money? No. I have a couple Patreons, so maybe I'm making like $30 a month at most. Let's see. Yeah, I'm a singer-songwriter. Primarily, I sing mostly. I learned to play guitar and piano out of necessity to write music. But yeah, I'm a singer-songwriter. I write acoustic, kind of, we would say, like folk music, protest music. I'm an immigrant. So I was born in Chile, and then I came to the U.S. when I was 7. So the political climate is like very, very like personal and very directed towards me. I feel attacked all the time, but and so out of that and just kind of my life, I've written songs, and that's kind of how I've started coping with that. So I think that sums me up pretty well.
Yeah. Man.
Everyone already knows who you are, I'm assuming.
I assume as well. Someone probably stumbles upon this, and like, they'll understand.
She does everything. But the reason that I followed you online was my husband actually followed you. And then he sent me one of your stories about poetry. And you were talking about your poetry class. I don't remember exactly what it was. I think you were talking about this girl, and my husband's like, you totally relate to her. And I watched your story, and I was like, you're right, followed. So that's kind of how it happened.
That's so funny.
That's how I found you on the internet.
I honestly, all of my Instagram stories are usually in like the middle of the night, and they all feel kind of like a fever dream. So I'm like, man, do I even remember this?
It does. I feel like that's what I get. I just get poetry fever dream, and then also Instagram story fever dream. It's just, that should be the name of your first book. Just like, I've been awake for 50 hours.
The longest I've gone, I think, is consistently is like 3 days. It's like,
oh my
the
God.
longest I've made it like completely awake, no naps.
Oh my God, that is terrifying.
I won't do it again. That was in high school. That was a mistake.
Oh my God, that's hardcore. Let me tell you.
I was trying to be like a microbiologist back then. That was a whole other thing.
Yeah, I'm glad you stuck to poetry. That's really like where you belong, in my personal opinion. I really enjoy the way that you write. It's actually really evocative. I know it's supposed to be about the creative process, but this is just like a shameless plug about your poetry. I actually really enjoy it. You're welcome.
I'm trying to like get back into it because I've spent like the past 3 months really out of it, just because I've been doing like summer school, and like more of it's like editing and production and that kind of stuff. And I took like an anthropology class, and I was studying for like grad school and like working on my applications. So, like
I saw that.
I wasn't really working on new work the past couple months, and so it's been strange, like a weird like void of just like,
yo, I feel that. Like these last, let's see, I haven't written new song. I mean, I write new songs, but I usually write a lot more. But I'm focusing on writing an EP right now. Or I have songs that I want to make into an EP, right? So I have to practice them, really get them down, and get the arrangement done. And so I haven't really been writing, and it feels so weird because, like, you know what I mean? People, like, followed me online for my new music, and now I'm not posting. I'm just posting covers and stuff, and people are like, where's your new music? That's why we're here. And I'm just like, I really haven't been writing anything because I've been so focused on making sure that this stuff is good, you know, and that you eventually can listen to it on the internet, and not just, you know, a 1 minute Instagram story, you know, or like a Instagram post. So it's been a thing. I think when you're associated with creating new work consistently, and then, you know, you're like a tree. You're not going to blossom all year. You know what I mean? Like you need a fall and like a winter to kind of revitalize.
It's so hard, especially because the way that like I started doing like poetry on like Instagram, like when I really like forced myself, because I like changed from a biology major to an English major, and so I was like yeah, it just happened. So it was like one day I was just thrown into all the classes with like everybody else who had like already been like an English major for like 2 years. Some people are in grad school already. Some people, like, it's very mixed in like the English department. Some people can, because my first session that I took them was summer classes. So summer classes, it has like everyone, like literally freshmen to like grad school level people in the classes.
Oh my God.
So that was interesting. I was very fresh, and I knew nothing about anything, and so I was like, okay, so I'm gonna write a poem every day for like 30 days. And so I did it for like that either May or June, I think, and that like really got me into it. And I started going from like these short little like 4-line things to like these gradually longer ones, and then like I just like worked into that, and then I did at least like 3 a week for months. It was probably a good like 6-9 months where I like really did that. Or I didn't go like a week without posting one for a very long time too, and now it's been like months, which is very strange.
Yeah, yeah, I actually did notice that. But I think you're making a lot of other stuff. It's like you're going like around. I feel like that's what I'm doing too. Like I'm like going around the same thing. Like I can't songwrite forever, you know. I got to live to be able to songwrite, you know what I mean? Like if I have nothing to write about, then like can't write. Yeah, also quick plug of your stuff again. I really like your stuff. I submitted to do this thing with you, and I'm like, oh man, I really hope she gets to me eventually. Then you emailed me, and I was like, I really like your mixtapes. I think it's an interesting way of presenting poetry. It's like very rhythmic, and that's how I think about songs. Like all of my songs are very poetic in lyric. So I don't know if you know this artist, but her name is Joni Mitchell, and she's like the extreme. I feel like she has like a lot of really beautiful lyrics, but very complex music too. And then on the other side is like popular music, and it has really simple lyrics and really simple music that people can just grab onto. And so when I started songwriting, I decided that I was going to be in the middle of that. And so my middle was going to be, I want to write about things that people don't write about, or music that I wish that I had lyrically, because I feel like, you know, like when you can't sing a song, you know, and you have a quote or there's something that you want to tattoo on your body, right? Like the words are like kind of what's ingrained in your mind. But I was like, I can't get people to like my lyrics if they're not catchy. So we're going to write like really, like not basic, but like really simple, like pop structures around these really flowery lyrics. And so I feel like that's just the best way to like get the message across, which is like, you know, it's an odd place to be because like, right, lyrics, people want like lyrics that are almost so vague that you can put them in anything. And I feel like my lyrics aren't vague, they're almost like poetry. And so I'm like, how do I sell this? How do I, you know? And so it just reminded me of your it's almost like you do slam poetry, but it's like a mixtape instead, you know? So it's like we have like a similar approach, except for I put notes and chords kind of underneath what I write, you know?
I really like that, though, that like it's like you almost try and like, what is it? Like be like, hey, listen to these pop melodies and just come over here. And
right.
just kind of like sway into, and then be like, oh, this thing, you're actually really gonna like it, but you're not gonna realize it until it's stuck in your head and you hear like the words to it.
Yeah, it's like when I write protest music, I don't want to get preachy about it because people aren't going to listen to a song that's like, I hate you and we're supposed to hate people. I feel like people like that doesn't resonate. It definitely doesn't resonate with me as like a listener. So like I write love songs about like my relationship with like the government, for example, or like there's this song that I wrote. It's really weird because like my music isn't even out yet. So like if this comes out and like people are like, where can I listen to this? I'm like, well, I guess you can become my Patreon. There's like rare demos on there. Okay, so maybe I'll talk about a song that is going to be coming out on my EP just because it makes sense. Because I'm like I hope people want to listen to what I put out there. But if I tell them about songs that they can't even listen to, won't even make any sense.
It gives them something to look forward to.
Right? Like this song. Okay, so 2 examples. The first one is I wrote a song. It's titled Leon, it's now titled Unsteady. But like at the time, I was waiting for my immigration renewal papers. And so the name of the guy who was withholding my application before it went through, his name was Leon. And right, so I wrote him a love song. I was like, you make me cry, so unsteady, and like the verse goes like, with perfect blue ink, I fill in your lines, begging you to let me stay. You make me think that I'm the one you said you dreamed about. And so it feels kind of like a one to you relationship. So people are like, oh, she's like really gonna nail this guy, when really, you know, it's something so like kind of big, but I just kind of make it personal, because I want people to like, you know, almost feel like they can sing it to a lover, you know, but really what it's about is, you know. And then there's this song that I wrote, and it's like a really happy major key, right? So it's in C. And people listen to the song, and this will be on the EP. It's called Nowhere, So When I Die. And so it talks about kind of how, as an immigrant, you really feel like you're not from here or from there, right? And so when you listen to the melody, it's like, like, so, actually, if you don't mind, I'll get my guitar and I'll play it for you. This is a ukulele. So it's like a little mini guitar instead of like a full-sized one, because I used to live in a really small apartment and I didn't really have a place for a guitar. And every time I went to Guitar Center, the guys would make fun of me. They'd be like, "What do you mean you don't have space for a guitar?" I'm like, "I live in a single with like 3 other people. We're in Los Angeles. What do you mean? You know that we don't have space." So anyway, it looks like this. But like the melody, it goes like, right, like really like trying to be so pure, just like these really happy major chords. But then the chorus is like, so when I die, from my body to ashes, and when I die, bury me deep in the ground, so when I die, I may have life in me, so that I may go into the tallest redwood tree. And so I played it at the conference. It must have been like 11:30, and everyone's like, "It sounds so pretty, but you're literally talking about what you want people to do with your ashes."
Oh, I love it so much, though.
Right? I'm like, that's the whole point of it, though. Like, you listen to this melody, and if you're not paying attention to the lyrics, right, it's so almost like sweet, like almost like saccharine, and how sweet it is, and like how joyful, and like my ideal arrangement will have like a small little chorus going like, like in the background, you know, like really like imagine like a church song. But here I am telling you, like, you know, when I die, I burn my body to ashes, and I want to be put in a redwood tree, and I want you to tie me in red ribbon, and then the other half of my ashes, I want you to throw them into the ocean, you know, because I'm really from nowhere, you know. So like and the ending line is like, so when I die, maybe I'll feel alive. I wrote it when I was really depressed, right? Can you tell? And so everyone, right? So I get out, and the host comes up, and she's like, "It sounded so happy, but it was so sad." And I'm like, yeah, I mean, have you ever heard a song like deal with that? I don't think I've ever heard one. And so like where I was at that point in my life, I was like, yeah, I need it. Like, I need this song to comfort me, like, even to know, like, you know, like, so yeah, I don't belong anywhere. Nobody wants me, at least like as an immigrant here, you know. And I was graduating from college. I wrote this in 2015. It was like, right, so like I've just turned 21. I didn't think I was going to turn 21, so here I am. I'm 21. I'm graduating from college. I have to start this job that I'm like about, but I need the money. And like, you know, this whole like it's the presidential campaigns are running, and it's just like the most intense time. And you know, I'm like, all right, well, you know, when I'm dead is when I'll find peace. It's like, oh my God, you need to chill. Like, but it's true. Sometimes that's all the comfort that you get. Yeah. is that. But I feel like, you know, poets get that. Poets get, oh yeah, when I'm dead I'll feel peace. They get that. Whereas like I feel like regular lyric writers or like pop musicians, you know, they're like, we write happy songs about you wanting to like marry people, you know what I mean? So
I mean, definitely like people who like aren't like writing stuff like that all the time. I think it was in the early days of when I was doing poetry, and it was like people who knew me were kind of like the only ones who were like following me. And so like I wrote one like really, I guess, depressing poem one day, and I got a bunch of messages from people asking me if I was okay, and I was like, I just needed to get that out. Like, don't judge me for it. Don't come asking me about it.
Right? Like, that's also, and you know, like Maiga Vidal is my stage name, and it started because I was working this very serious corporate job. Mm-hmm. And so like I couldn't use my real name, because then my boss would find me, because she was like, you know, I don't want you to do music, like you really need to focus on going to grad school for this thing. And so That was kind of really disheartening. But true, like, in the corporate world, if you want to advance, you really got to commit to like the lifestyle. And I wasn't really committing, obviously. And so like I had to create like this almost fake name to kind of be able to create stuff without people being like, are you okay? Why are you doing this? Like, the expectations are blah, blah, blah. Like, I was 21 when I got hired, and I had a salary job at 21. Like that was supposed to be the career. You know what I mean? Sometimes I ask myself, like, should I have really committed to that? Now that I'm trying to do this music thing, it's like, if I really wanted this like corporate job, like really safe with like an actual ladder, I could have it. But it's not something that I actually want to do for the rest of my life. And I don't know. It's comforting, but also sad, because I feel like there's a lot of people that invested in me that just, I had nothing to lose, so I was great at it. You know what I mean? Like, when you really care about something, you really try really hard, but you the anxiety of like, oh man, if I don't do well, blah blah blah. But like, I didn't really care, right? So I just tried stuff which ended up being brilliant. People are like, oh, you're so good at this. I'm like, I have nothing to lose. You know what I mean? Like, if I don't get promoted, it doesn't matter to me. I just want enough money to fund my music stuff. But I can't tell anybody about it.
Dang, that really like does put you in like a corner with that. Like I go by like a stage name as well. It's my mom's last name, but what is it, for like different reasons. But at first it was very much like keeping it like separate. I was hoping that no one would find me. Turns out everyone found me. Right. So I was like, well, there goes that. But that was also like my own thing, where it was like I was doing all this like science stuff, and like I was doing like all of this I was trying to be like not even like a lab technician, like I was trying to like actually work at like the CDC or something, like, oh my god, like, I was like gonna be like a government worker and like work with pipettes and all that stuff, and then like it killed me inside. But like I had to like actually think, and I was like, but in like another perspective of like just like you were saying, like when you want to climb like the corporate ladder, like I was thinking, like, if I'm working for the government, how are they gonna feel about me having like YouTube channels and like doing these other things? And I was just like, so that was like a consideration that I had at like 17, 18, where I was like, okay, I can't go by like this name on here, I'll start going by like this name on here. And I went through like 3 different names before I just like settled on this one. And I was like, it's a lot, like keeping things like separate and then deciding like which you is the one that like you're gonna like consistently like pursue in like your life.
It's so true. Or who you're gonna present, like, like some of my personal friends don't know that I have a singing account. A lot of them do maybe now, but like when I first started, they were like, oh no, Patty's like my my Patricia is like my actual name, but they're like, who's Maiga? And I'm just like, you don't know her. Like, I don't know who she is. She must be, because I have a twin sister. We don't look anything alike. But they're like, this is you. And I'm like, no, maybe. Like, if they found it, like, you know what I mean? Like, it'd be okay. Mm-hmm. But, like, I created 2 Instagram accounts. Like, one is, like, private and personal. And then the other one is, like, my open, like, music account. And so one day my boss found it. It was right before I left, too. And I was like, oh no. So I had to block her on it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like self-protection here. Like, I'm trying, and I feel like once you get out into the real world, a lot of your bosses and a lot of the people that invest in you feel like they own you. And that's something that I didn't really like. Like, I feel like, thank you for giving me this job. Thank you for thinking that, I'm going to be great in this career, in this field. And I'm so grateful that you think that I'm going to be. And that you've invested your time and your knowledge in teaching me stuff. But I still don't feel like I owe you. Like, I shouldn't feel that way. You know what I mean? So that's something to take out with you if you decide to get a corporate job on the other end.
I always think about what I'm going to end up doing just like after this, because I am graduating soon and like I'm applying to grad school, but poetry programs are like extremely competitive, like more competitive than like Harvard Law School, which is like insane. so it's like I always think like, am I gonna teach? Am I gonna like do like an editing job? Am I gonna do like copywriting for someone? But that the thing that you're talking about like feeling like you kind of like owe them and feeling like kind of like semi like I shouldn't feel that guilt is what I felt towards a lot of like my high school teachers, because I was so like high achieving, and because I was very close with a lot of my teachers, and like
exactly.
They were very much like, oh, you're gonna go so far, you're gonna do all these things, and then deciding that like, no, I'm not gonna go to med school, or I'm not gonna get like a PhD, I'm gonna be a writer. And so like a lot of those people I just haven't talked to. There's like a very few of them who like I have like reached out to since then, who like I knew would be okay with it, and then there's the other ones who like I just feel so much like guilt because of like all the time they spent like helping me like in labs, or like helping me like do college applications, like recommendation letters, and I can't.
No, I get that 100%. I was like, I wasn't the valedictorian, but I was one of them. Super high achiever, I was gonna go to med school, right? I was gonna major in bio. I double majored in theater and psych. But I told everybody, I want to be an actor. That was my original thing. If I'd known that I could have been a songwriter earlier, I would have done that. It just never occurred to me that somebody like me could write music. Like, I'm Hispanic, I'm an immigrant. I don't really see anybody like me writing music. I mean, more now, but I'm like in my 20s. Like, as a teenager, seeing somebody like me would have changed my life. But I was really into theater, and I told everybody, like, I'm going to be an actor. And everyone's like, no, you're throwing your life away. All my, like, so many of my high school teachers, even my drama coach, Donald Moore, whom I love, was just like, don't waste your life. You're too good. Like, go live out something else. And so when I did get even in college, my college professors in the theater department, I can talk about this forever, but I won't, because I don't want to create any more bad blood in my life. But they were very much like, you could do something else. Like, we don't really feel like this is for you. And it was so discouraging, But they were like, you're like so smart, like, you know what I mean? And so to me, it was like, oh, I guess to be an actor, you don't have to be smart, or to be an artist, you don't have to be smart. It was always viewed, it was like, I was either smart or creative, right? Like, I couldn't be both. And because I was defined for so long as being a smart person, I couldn't possibly succeed as an artist, and I couldn't possibly make good art. And so I feel like maybe you get this a lot more than most people, because you're defined by this smart thing, and then you're like, no, I'm gonna be an artist, and they're like, wait, no, we had a completely different vision for what you were gonna do with your life. And it's like, yeah, but you're not living my life. Like, I want to make art, even if it sucks. And I don't think it sucks. I just think you guys don't give me space to be, because I didn't fit the vision that you created for me, And so, yeah, college was, I'm very grateful, but I'm happy to be out of there, for sure. If any of my old, like, college people that I went to college with, listen to this, I mean every word of that. Like, I'm happy it's over, and I would never do it again. Even more than middle school. Middle school was like trash, you know what I mean?
You're saying about like professors being like the ones who are kind of saying like, like maybe you don't belong here. Like, what was the size of like your program? Because I know sometimes it definitely feels like that in like either the writing or like the theater programs here, because we're so like mixed with like, we're small groups of like English and creative writing or playwriting majors, and then like the grad students who like go along with that, and like it's also a small group, and there's definitely like a feel towards like some of them that like some people have and like some people don't, and then it's like, am I supposed to be here?
Well, okay, so I went to a small Lutheran university in Thousand Oaks. I wouldn't say the theater program was very competitive, but at the time it paid me the most amount of money, and I'm poor and I wasn't getting like any financial aid from the state because I'm an immigrant. So I went there and I got a scholarship from them. I felt like, okay, and I think it's different layers. So my answer to that is yes, I do definitely believe that all professors have favorites. and they have visions for their students, because ultimately, right, they carry their vision forward, right? Because like if you have a professor that you're really close with and they've mentored you, you carry those thoughts as your own, and then you pass them down. It's kind of like living on. So I do believe that. I think I had two things going against me. I think the first is that I took myself way too seriously, and I was like very much like, oh, I'm gonna learn like every single musical that I can, and I'm gonna be like on it about everything because this is my life, and like I'm gonna go at it like a smart kid would, you know what I mean? Like, whereas like I read, I overachieve, I overanalyze, I'm like reading all these plays, I'm trying to understand, you know what I mean? So like, whereas I feel like I could have done more on the networking side and been more friendly. So I feel like that was, and the second thing is I was the only ethnic person in my entire like theater department. I played the Asian character, even though I'm Latina. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was like the token ethnic kid. And also, I'm not very thin. And I went to a predominantly white school, right? So, like, I already have a different body type. I already look different. And so, you know, I wasn't going to have, like, the money placed on me. And I always felt that way. And I feel like people will be like, oh, that's not true. Like, you know, we always believed in you. But I never felt it. You know what I mean? I always felt that others were put over me because of the way that they looked or the way that they fit, right, the description better of kind of what they had envisioned. And, you know, art, unfortunately, the performing arts, which is, I think, like my side, and even online, it's so much about the way that you look and the way that you present yourself. And, you know, and I've always struggled with that. Like, I don't, like, my favorite artists, you know, barely comb their hair, let alone put a shit ton of makeup on. You know, so that's a skill that I feel like I didn't develop that I wish I'd had. So I think yes, there are favorites, and I feel like the person that is a favorite will blatantly know, because the opportunities that are provided, right, are to such a high degree that you just look on and you're like, am I not ready for that? Am I not good enough for that? And I don't think that's true. I think that whoever, it takes one person to decide that you're worth something. And unfortunately for me, that person never appeared while I was in college. You know what I mean? So, but I definitely saw it with other people. That I was like, oh, they're putting everything on this guy. Or girl, like they're sending them everywhere, and they're playing the leads, and they're making shows, like they're picking shows around these people to showcase them, you know. And I feel like people are like, oh, blah 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 blah. It's like, no, like professors know, you know what I mean. But also on the note, professors have been teaching at college for what, maybe 30 years or 20 years or whatever. They're not in the real world anymore. They live in a bubble. And so you have to remember that. That's what made me feel better. It's like they haven't auditioned in the real world, and they haven't been working there. And how well can they actually prepare me to work in the real world? And that's why I started, like, my junior and senior year of college. I just started going outside of my department. My professors did not like that. But I was getting more experience working in the real world, trying to get shows, trying to meet people, you know, and just finding myself in a way. So I don't know. It's kind of a mixed bag. How about for you?
I think definitely what you said about, with like older professors, ones who have been like teaching for like a long time. I definitely feel that a lot more, because it feels like they're more invested in like that academic whole than
right,
like the ones who are like still like more recent in it and are like doing like their own work kind of outside as well.
Yeah.
I feel like definitely a lot with because I'm in the theater department a lot, just because of the fact that like the writers at UT are like all kind of like just mixed in together, because all the programs are so tiny. So like a lot of like the theater like grad students are really like, they're like, we're all broke, we're all putting on our own plays and making no money for it, we're all doing this really like out of passion. Like my playwriting professor from this last spring semester, Daria, she's almost 30, but she had been like putting on like plays and like here and there for like throughout most of like her 30s or throughout most of her 20s. And but she like the main way that like she makes money is she was like a junior like figure skating something, and so she like trains like figure skaters, and so like that's how
hilarious.
That's how she makes money. And so like now on top of like that, she does like her teaching, but she knew that like basically she was gonna just make the small like tiny ice skating empire if like she stayed in that for any longer. So she decided to go to grad school and like teach because she like wanted to be able to like write more, and she wanted to be like in that more. And so I feel like Daria is like one of those like good examples of like a professor really trying to like make sure that everyone who like wants to write, like even because a lot of our program wasn't like other theater majors or like even writing majors. It was like people who were in like economics or people who were in like business or like engineering. Like everyone was just like a mishmash in this class. So it was really people who just like wanted to write, even if like that's not what they were going to school to do. And she was very much like, this is your space to do it, and it felt very accepting of that, and I was really glad that it was. But I have taken classes where it feels like this is the way that I want people to write, and if you don't write this way, I'm only going to really favor the people who do write this way and who write like me and who are like this. And so that really bothers me when that happens, and then that's when I like distance myself from like a class and generally just like write towards myself, and I just don't care in those classes.
I feel like so true. Even in the real world, like, you know, I told you I went to this conference and people are like, you should really consider this thing and you should really consider that thing. And I think you have to be open to critique. I feel like as now I've never been more open to people being like, okay, what can make a song great, right? So, and then I try it. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna listen to this. Oh, you want to hire chorus? Okay, I'm gonna try and write one or try and come up with, you know, something else. But I think that also you should know when things are done, and you should know when things are, like, when you're happy with it. Because I feel like John Mayer, who I know is a douchebag, but I love him. He's like my douchebag, you know what I mean? He has like these 3 rules and about like picking a song for a record, which I kind of lived by as I'm making my first one. But the first thing was, or like the thing that I remember most was, do you want to play that song over and over and over and over and over again? Because you're going to have to be playing it over and over and over and over again. Do you like that song the way that it is enough to do that? Like, you know what I mean? Does the song represent you as an artist? Does it represent your life? Like, is it really you? You know, things like that. And so, you know, maybe I could write a catchier, poppier song. You know, I could. I know how to. But does it represent me as an artist? And do I want to sing that over and over and over and over? So I feel like with you, like, again, like, you know, when you're writing poetry, I feel like if you make a compilation or a zine, right, like, is this work going to represent me as an artist? Because I feel like you could change your way. You could always learn to write, like, you know, the best pop song, the, you know, Instagram poetry. You don't write Instagram poetry, which is why I really like you as a writer. Like I went to Barnes and Nobles the other day, right, and they have like social media poetry as like an aisle now, and I look at there, I open the page, it's like a 3-line poem, and I look at Max and I said, that's a sentence.
That's how I started, though. We gotta be real. Like, that's how I, like, what I told you, like, I did for, like, the 30 days where I was, like, writing. Most of them were literally just, like, 1-2 sentences, and I was like, it's got spacing. It's a poem.
Right? But I feel like there's a difference between, like, that's a sentence and spacing. Like, I feel like there's some Instagram poets that I love. If you're ever looking for, like, a really good poetry collection, Jessica Salgado, Corazón, like heart in Spanish. It's in English, but the title of the book is in Spanish. It's translated heart, obviously. And, you know, sometimes she'll write, like, almost like a little story, or, like, it'll be, like, just, like, a sentence. But it's moving. It's so evocative, you know what I mean? It's not just, like, I looked at you. You looked at me. I wish I could breathe. I'm like, you literally sent that in a text, didn't you? And you were like, that's a poem. You know, I guess part of me is a little bit more like, you don't have to be like all flowery. You don't have to be Like you can see when you're trying, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't want to open a book and feel like I could have written that. You know what I mean? Like I literally could have written that. Whereas like when I read a poetry book, I want to read it and feel like, wow, like I finally read that. Like somebody finally wrote that down because it was so specific, or it feels so alone. But I feel like everything is so vague, like, you know what I mean? That's just my personal opinion. People might hate on my poetry stance. I wouldn't say I'm like an idealist or like a purist, because I'm not. But I do like poems that use imagery, mostly because I'm really inspired by that. I want to write a song. But also because I feel really personal. Like if you can tell me like at 2:30 a.m. I saw you for the last time, you know what I mean? That feels like real, and like you're sharing something real with me, rather than like you saw me and I saw you. You know, it might be the same thing, but there's just like a different way of writing that. Oh man. I'm already, if people are gonna listen to this, they're gonna come at me with like flames and pitchforks right now. Don't hate me.
I mean, art is like always a divisive thing, because like I know that what is it? I'm like a big fan of like over the past couple of years, I think I started reading like Yoko Ono stuff, which is like
right.
Yoko Ono is like such a thing that like some people either love or hate because it's so
exactly.
like modernist. And I have like tons of like I have Yoko Ono's like Acorn, like Grapefruit, and I've had them checked out for like 3 years and stuff. And there's a thing about like the simplicity of those that is like experiential though, that I think is like, I don't know, I feel like it breaks away from like the too simple and like it means something else, but it's like,
yes,
I don't know how to explain it any other way. It's just like
I get you. I love Yoko Ono as a writer. People always give me shit because I'm a hardcore Beatles fan, but I love Ono, so everyone's like, oh, what? I'm like, you can love both of these things. It's not like I'm like a Venn diagram, you know, love for Yoko Ono, love for the Beatles. Like I'm like in the rare like 0.1% of people that love both. And I think it's because her work is really about, it's almost like her work is 3D for me.
Yes.
Because she's very much like, do this, or I can't remember exactly how the poem goes, but she's like, write every dream that you've had, now cut it up and throw them away, be free. I can't remember exactly, but that was kind of like paraphrasing it. And so I'm like, you know, if I did do that, like, that would actually make me free. Mm-hmm. Like if I wrote down every, you know, and it's a poem because the way that it's so descriptive and visceral. So yeah, I'm with you on the Ono train. More hate from the Beatles people that are going to be listening to this from my side of the world. You can like both of them. If you're not reading, or I don't know, I don't like Yoko Ono's music. She's very intense. Like definitely punk, super punk before punk was a thing. And I know it's not for me, but like as a lyricist and as a writer and as an artist, I really enjoy like the simplicity but like depth of her work, you know. Mm-hmm. You know what her work reminds me of? This is going to look dumb, but like, you know, like if you see a vine, right? Like there's this like vine of this lady, and she's like across the way, there's like this train, and people are going on it, and she's like, oh, it must be a little puddle because it's like right there, but then she steps down and she sinks into the water, but it looks like a small puddle, but she just sinks into it. That's what Yoko Ono's work reminds me of. Like it looks like a shallow puddle. You jump into it and you're like covered in water. You come back up, you're like, I should have walked down the little way to make sure I didn't get wet. You know what I mean? Like, I gotta send you the back.
That's an interesting way to like describe immersion. But yeah, I definitely understand that. Especially because I go back to like her books when I'm in like a creative rut, because I feel like I need to like, I feel like I usually like block off my emotions for myself somehow. And like going through like those books, I'm like, okay, I feel like I have to like break apart like something that was like I was putting up, and then like after I've gone through like a couple of them, like either if I've just like thought about them or like I've actually like written out and like done some of them, that like it just, I feel a little bit more open, and then I feel like I can do more things, and I really like that. And how you described it as like 3D, what is it? That's like a thing that like I always mess with in my poetry classes, because I've done poems that are like, I'm like, okay, so here's all the words going down like this, but imagine this is like swirling around this part, and then imagine that music is playing like this, and then like, so it's like an animation or something, and then it has music playing, and then I've had other poems that are like paintings, but I'm like, okay, so imagine it like this, but then this piece is moving, and like these things are happening, and so I get really like multimedia about it sometimes, and I like break into other stuff.
But I feel like that's the way that poetry, especially now, is so innovative. Is that I feel like music and lyrics in my case being more poetic, more poetry-like, makes it 3D in that you elevate the words. Or my whole thing with music is like the music supports the words. The words are the most important thing. The music either makes you, like, it either doesn't click, you're like having like death and happy song. Like that is so jarring for a reason. Like it's purposely made jarring. Or if you write a love song, it's supposed to be sweet, but you're elevating the words to be something else. With poetry now, like the way that you describe it, it's a living, breathing thing. You know what I mean? And that's what I feel like poetry has always been. But now you can actually build the infrastructure, right? If you wanted your poem to be read and listened to in a swirling motion, you can build that so that people can read it that way now. You know, because I could have the book on my iPad and I don't need it printed, and so I'll flip the page and the words will appear in the way that you've envisioned them. And so not only is it poetry now, it's art. You know what I mean? So I feel like, I don't know. That's why I feel like your words are also really 3D. Hold on. Keep talking. I'm going to find a poem of yours that I've saved on my phone.
I'm just trying to remember any of my writing that I haven't, like, blocked out.
You're like, it's all a fever dream. I'm dying in all of them.
I only have, like, so many because since I've been working on my grad school application, I have, like, a stack of, like, 20 that I'm like trying to be like, which of you do I hate the least, and which of you do I feel okay like representing myself in like the world. And
oh my god,
because of the fact that like you have to also just the fact that I only have like 2 dimensions for that, and I'm like, but I want you to hear it, and I want to have it in like this pretty like colorful text box, and I want to have like all these things, and I'm like, and I just have to send you black and white text. And
yeah. I understand. Hold on, I found another poem. This is by Jessica Salgado, which I think you might like. It goes like this. This poem is a loose tooth that won't fall out. I've nudged it, wiggled it, waited for it. Today I will tie a string around a doorknob. I will slam the door. I will yank it out of me the way I did with you.
I like that.
Right? I'm just like, oh my god. It's so visceral. Like I can feel how the tooth is gonna feel. You know what I mean? There's something so... All right, you're gonna have to talk while I find you here.
But that just reminded me that what is it? For some reason, I found out the past like maybe it was because my wisdom teeth were coming in, and I was like feeling that pain. I wrote about teeth and gums and blood like a lot the past like 9 months, and I was like, what is this? And I was realizing when I was going through my poems, I was like, there's a lot of like copper taste. There's a lot of like blood. There's a lot of gums and tongues and like skin and like just a lot of like tissue and like muscles that's in like a lot of that like texture is like in a lot of stuff, and like bone was in there a lot, and then teeth, and I'm trying to remember other things, but yeah, I wrote about those things a lot, and I was like, okay, don't know what's going on there, but
but then it was all to do, I feel you. I've been focusing on writing about birds. That's kind of been my thing, and I was thinking like, why birds? And it's because like I'm right from LA. That's like where I essentially have been since I was like 7 years old. The 2 birds that I see, pigeons, and they're all gray, and an occasional seagull. You know, because like occasionally a seagull will make it inland enough where I will see it. I got to Hawaii, and I see so many birds, and the pigeons are gorgeous. Just like, I don't know if you follow me on Instagram, but like one day I just went on a pigeon rant where I just posted pictures of pigeons that I saw, and I was like, they're so pretty. And I know they're like essentially the version of mice for birds, but like they're so pretty here. And like there's birds with red and like all yellow birds, like these colorful things that I've never seen before. I came from a concrete jungle, but here it's like an actual jungle. It's like Jurassic Park, like all the time. But I realized that so much of my emotion was placed on these birds because they're so free and creative. Like in Hawaii, you're driving, and if you live anywhere else in the mainland, if you're flying towards a bird, the bird won't walk. It'll fly away. It'll just be like, I don't want to die. Here, the bird will walk across the road as you're driving and look at you and be like, I'm walking here. And if you don't stop, it will walk. It won't fly for safety. It'll just walk. It won't hop. It'll literally walk and be so chill. Like, it's not afraid to die. I'm like, and it's like, yeah, the birds here just have such an attitude. Like, they know that this is their playground because so much of it's still vegetation. Like, there isn't like that much, construction or whatever. They've never had to really share. And so you're driving, and it's like, okay, I guess I'm gonna stop for the bird because she's actually crossing the road here. And like it's so bizarre, but I just feel like, and I have this idea in my mind of being like a pigeon, because like everywhere that I've been, pigeons look different. They kind of match right where they are to kind of blend in. And I'm like, I wish I was a pigeon to blend wherever I go. And I was like, oh yeah, gotta flesh that out. Well, yeah, birds for me, just lots of birds. I don't know. I finally figured it out, but for months I was just like, I've been in Hawaii since March. It's just like bird after bird, like bird memes.
Why do I keep writing this?
It's like, why beaks and like red hair and feathers and like the weight of that? Why is it that I'm exploring? I realized because I was like, I want to be like these birds. Like, they're so free. They don't care. They just exist. They're just like, yeah. What are you going to do about it? And I'm just like, I've never had that confidence like in my entire life. But these birds, they know their value. They know their worth,
I love animals so much, and just like how they all have such like personalities. Like at UT, they have like a bunch of squirrels just like everywhere. And because they're so used to people constantly, they're so calm around people. So I'll be sitting at like a picnic table just like eating, and it'll hop up on the seat next to me, and then it'll hop up on the table next to me, and they'll just kind of look at me and be like, are you gonna give me some food? And I'll be like, I don't think you want any of this, but you can sit here with me. And a squirrel will genuinely sit down next to me while I'm eating and just be like, here.
Just be like, if you think about feeding me right here. Okay, found it. This March 2nd, it's titled "It Could Break, Even Broken Pieces Have Fingerprints."
From this year?
Yes, March 2nd of this year.
None of that sounds familiar.
So I will read you the poem. It looks like this. It's like a background. This is clay scraped, smooth fingertips on earth, soothe, nails carve, geometric messages, secrets to be seen when thin strips of terracotta, black lit shadow play, faded blue walls, a gift to you on dark nights, candle lit presence when states of mind and land divide us. This imprint of hands in time, solidified and standing. It's so, I can see it, you know what I mean? I don't even need the photo. I could see it. I could imagine like, a house in which all that happened and I was sharing that with somebody. You know what I mean? That you really centered it in my mind. Like, it's so descriptive, and then these dark nights by you, I'm like, now I know where I am. Boom.
The interesting thing about that poem was actually, I was stuck on like the pages that I was working on for my play, and I was trying to write a scene, and I couldn't write it in dialogue, and it didn't end up making it into the play, or at least into this draft. And so it's just a poem that like stands alone from that, and like a whole other like plot line that like doesn't exist somewhere else. But it's like these intense feelings that were like supposed to be in there, and it's literally just in like that one poem now.
But I love that feelings are represented in tactile things like clay stripped fingernail.
I always feel it.
Yeah. I feel like that's the best writing. If you can taste it, if you can smell it, not so much seeing it, but if you could feel it. Because you can describe something forever. You can be like, I'm wearing blue shoes. But it's like, if you say, I can feel I'm looking at my shoes right now and I'm trying to think of like, the blisters under my feet remind me of how many hours I've been wearing this. And, like, I'm going out on a Sunday night. Like, there's so many different ways to describe the same thing in a way that I was like, everyone has had blisters on their feet. They know exactly what wearing, like, heels to a party feels like. But you've said it in a way that people feel. Like, you don't even have to think about it. I don't know, those are my favorite poems. That and poems that are like, you're doing okay, you're not gonna die. Those are my favorite poems. Where, like, if you were to die, it's okay, it's gonna take a while. I'm on a kick on, like, journey poems right now.
Nice. I need to read more poetry, like, just pleasure reading, and, like, actually, like, listening to music too. Like, I've been so, like, deprived of things. I've had to, like, watch viewings for, like, class, and so, like, I've only watched, like, TV shows and movies, and I haven't, like, heard music or, like, read anything enjoyable, which is very strange.
I read so little, but I feel you.
I'm like,
So
I need those other creative things in right now, and it's not happening. Oh, that's what it was, where you're just, like, talking about, like, how things feel, and then, like, even, like, trying to, like, capture how something feels, like, in writing is just so hard sometimes. Like, I know I wrote a bunch of poems when I was in San Francisco back in January, and I'm still frustrated with describing exactly how the mist felt on the beach. Like,
yes.
I still haven't gotten it right, and, like, I don't know how to fix that, and I'm
Oh
just
my
like,
god, yes. Have you ever read, so, like, I don't read that much. I think I listen to a lot of music. That's my primary inspiration, because I'm trying to find kind of what I want my sound to be. And so I feel like the only way to do this is to listen to other artists, and listen to their words. I like to listen to words, how they fit together. But I was reading, and I don't like to read poetry books unless I really trust the author, because I feel like if I don't trust you, then I don't want to take the time to understand what you're saying. So that's my own. But I was reading this Sylvia Plath, not poetry or her book, but her diary writings. And she talks about how so much of writing about what it looks like to be able to convey that, and how long it takes. And she's writing, these are like her college days. Mm-hmm. So she's not even a published writer at this point. She just knows she wants to be a writer. And she's struggling so hard to kind of find her place in where that means, and what that means as, like, to be a writer, and, like, what it means to be a woman and a married woman, or to be with somebody. And I struggle with that, like, you know, as an artist, I want to just be selfish and be for myself, but I'm married now, so I have to think about another person, and, you know, like, they deserve time too. You know, I can't just be like, art, which is kind of what I do. And my husband's like, you're married. I'm like, okay, let's go play The Walking Dead. You know, like, I'll make dinner. But she writes about how, like, she discovered the word cerulean. Mm-hmm. And she said, that's the color of the ocean that I needed. That's the color. And that's why I couldn't describe it right, because I didn't have the words. And that's exactly how I feel. Like, sometimes I'll be writing something and I'll be like, that's not the right word. I know the word exists, but I'm not going to go look through the dictionary to read through, you know what I mean, or through, like, the adjective book or the rhyme book, which is, I live with my rhyme book essentially. But yeah, I know what you mean. But when you find the right word, it's so exhilarating. It's so like amazing. The click. Yeah, like that click. I went hiking a couple months ago with my husband and his best friend, and I sat at this little crevice, right? So I'm like, I don't know, really high up in the air, and the ocean is right below us. Like, if I fall, I will die. Most exhilarating feeling ever. But the ocean, and I was reading the book, and I was thinking, cerulean. I think I've finally seen it. I think I've tied those two together, because I feel like I knew the word cerulean. I've seen it on a Crayola box, you know what I mean? Like, I know the word, but now the color felt vivid. And so when I was trying to describe the ocean in my journal, I'm trying to describe how the ocean looks like. And I have these vague words like white foam. But, like, how's the foam? Like, the foam isn't like the coffee foam, you know? It's like, it's almost more spongy than that. But how can, you know what I mean? So it's like trying to find the words. And so, yeah, I wrote about that evening. And it's not going to be a song by any means, but I was struggling in my journal to be like, how do I describe this beautiful thing that I've seen so that other people don't have to even look at a photo to see it? So, I don't know. I think you're doing pretty well on that end, in my opinion. So I can feel it.
I'm trying to think of just how what is it? When you said your rhyme book, I had completely forgotten about like just like rhyming in songs as like that is like a thing that like you have to consider when like going through like the whole process of like sometimes poets literally just write it in like prose and you can just write it in lines and you can break with that form a lot, but it's like songwriting you pretty much rhyme most of the time for most people. There's like a playwright that I really like that doesn't really rhyme any of his songs, which is a very interesting thing. Dave Malloy.
Oh, okay.
Dave Malloy rhymes like no songs, and so I highly recommend Ghost Quartet as just like something to listen to.
Oh, yes. You know what? It's actually been on my list for like a couple of years.
Okay, it's very strange. It's an experience, but I really like the way that Dave writes songs just because of the fact that it doesn't rhyme, and I find that very interesting because it doesn't happen very often. But yeah, I was just trying to think of like how you structure things like that because I don't really.
Okay. Well, I there's songs that I don't rhyme, and there are songs that I do rhyme. So I feel like, okay, the reason that you rhyme in a song, and a song is essentially this: you have 3 minutes to tell a full fleshed out story with a character. So right, I come from a theater background. A lot of my songs are story songs, and so if I'm rhyming, I want you to remember that, right? Because if I'm doing a couplet, or I'm trying to think of like an AABA, right? The reason I gave you that B was because I want you to remember that phrase because the rest is a cadence, right? So it's all about what you want to remember, and so I and then, of course, the chorus is to rhyme because you want people to sing it. So you want people to sing it, and for people to sing it, they have to remember it. And so you have to have words that anchor it. So, like, if you have fish and dish, right, those words are anchoring words because they sound similar. So you could be like, blah, 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 fish, blah, 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 dish. You know what I mean? Like, they'll have anchoring words. So that's how I think about that. But, like, I wrote the song. It's titled Daughter of the Air. And the second verse of that goes like, there's no rhymes, like, I look at the world from beneath the shadows, and I hide behind my fake name. I live on borrowed time and kindness, all from strangers that I've learned to adore. But then the next part rhymes because I want you to remember that. House for me is just a shelter, 'cause laying roots has never been my forte, 'cause that's never stopped me before. No, that's never stopped me before. So I've led your ear to be like, wow, that's a verse that doesn't rhyme. She's just telling me thoughts, but I want you to remember, no shelter, that's my forte, and that's never stopped me before. So I repeated that twice. So I'm guiding your ear to remember those things, because when I sing I'm a daughter of the air, it makes no sense. Like, what does that mean? And it means that when I graduated from college, my mom was yelling at me because I was like, Mom, I want to be a songwriter. And she's like any good Hispanic parent, she's like, ¿por qué? Right? She's yelling at me in the backseat of the car. And she tells me in Spanish, you're a daughter of the air. You don't lay down any roots. You're always like drifting where the wind blows. And I'm like, I look back at her and I'm like, Mom, that's a great idea for a song. And she's like, no, the opposite of what I wanted to happen has now happened. But I'm trying to set you up so that you innately know what that means, even though, like, I explained it in the chorus, it's like, daughter of the air, I'll follow my heart anywhere, right? Rhyme. But I've set it up with all these examples of this is what it means, even if you don't innately know what it means. Like, if you're Chilean, you might know what that means, but if you're not, then, right, you don't know. But, like, there's a song also on this new EP, it's called Reckless Daughter, or Reckless Woman. And the verse goes, it's a triple rhyme for the first part of the verse, but the second verse breaks totally away from that rhyme, and you have a word that doesn't even fit in any rhyme scheme, because I want you to remember that. So it's, my eyes won't look away, my thoughts cellophane, they're my dead giveaway. I devour your every move, I can't explain this hunger you make feel. So the word you're going to remember there is move.
Yeah.
Remember your every move. So I feel like I played with that, but when I took the song and I met with the lyric guy, he's like, this doesn't rhyme. This, so the entire time they're talking about structure, and I'm just like, my entire point is to get you to remember things that, right, if I rhymed move with something else, it might not have had the effect of having it. And so I think that's where I play with structure. People don't like that. That's not pop music. Pop music is, actually, I'm not going to sing on your podcast songs that aren't mine because you might not be able to get money for this, so ignore that. But if you listen to pop radio
on YouTube, who gets that?
Copyright your song, be like, there's a cover on here that, but pop music is supposed to be easily relatable, easily reachable, and you remember it with the rhymes. And I'm trying to almost be like, no, let's make the listener remember, I devour your every move, because it's such a visceral, oh, I'm gonna eat you. People are like, why is that a thing? But it's when you really want someone, that's so reckless to want to devour someone. So the title is Reckless Woman. I'm trying
that's
to set
such a
you
good
up.
image. I love that.
Yeah, people. I remember the first time I played it for they're a band out here called the Fresh Pups. They're one of my first friends on island. They're very sweet. But I'm going to record my record with them, and so I'm playing them the 4 songs. And they said, that's my favorite line. And I'm in a songwriting, or I was in a songwriting thing in LA, where we had a songwriting group. We talk, right, every week we'd meet, and I took this song in. And I love him, okay? Rob Steele, he's great. But he tells me, he's like, that's my least favorite line, because it doesn't rhyme. Right? You have this perfect rhyme scheme, a triple rhyme for your opening line: cellophane, giveaway. Was it away, cellophane, giveaway? A perfect rhyme there, or almost perfect rhymes. And then this one line that doesn't make sense. You have these other rhymes. What? I was like, it's a choice. It's definitely a choice. Do people like that? No, but do I like it? Yeah, I think it's cool. So I feel like that's the important thing, to know what you like and to stick by it. Mm-hmm. Even because people will tell you that it's wrong. They won't tell you, oh, it's different, or they'll tell you it's wrong.
They'll be like, why? Why does this sound like this? That happens sometimes with writing poetry too. It's sometimes you'll choose to say something in a certain way, and it just really there was someone's poem, I think, that had a lot of city images. It was very urban, and then all of a sudden it broke to the countryside in one little space, but they wanted to do that, and it really upset someone else who was like, why does everything else sound like this? Why is everything else so gray, and then all of a sudden you've got this bright green thing here? And they're like, well, I want to do that. I want to do that. And then it upset the other person so much. It was kind of funny. But you just have to go with, whatever images you have, whatever sounds good to, your ear, and just flow.
There was the first year I was taking voice lessons with somebody that I unfortunately don't speak to anymore, but she kind of changed my life. She told me one day, she was like, you could write your own songs. And I was like, what? I was 20 years old. I mean, it was only 4 years ago. I wrote lyrics at that point. I wasn't even writing songs, but I wouldn't have started writing if it wasn't for her saying, you could write your own songs. I'm like, oh my God, people do that? I mean, of course they do, right? Of course they do. It never occurred to me that I could do it. But right as I was learning about that, a quote came up, and it's from a famous painter. I don't remember his name right now. Is it Kurt? Maybe it's Kurt Vonnegut. But anyway, and I don't remember the phrase exactly, but it's you have inside of you have taste, and your entire life as an artist is to satisfy that taste. And so when you write something, it's not good. You know that it could be better, because your taste is so refined that it guides you. And that's how you know whether you're doing something that you like or not. And your entire life is just trying to get that gap to close. And so I was so comforted by that, because the first songs that I wrote, and I mean, like Daughter of the Air is like the third or fourth song that I've ever written, but it's been rewritten, not lyrically, but musically several times. But I knew that it was wrong, and so I'm like, okay, it's not right yet. Got to keep working at it, and it gets closer every time. Do I feel like I'm writing songs 100% of the time that I would release? No, but I feel like every song that I'm writing leads me to write the next song that will potentially be one that I like enough to put out into the world. So when you were like, oh, which ones of you do I hate the least? And it's like when I was trying to put the 4 songs for this EP together, I'm like, okay, I have 12 songs that I don't hate, out of like 50 or 60 songs, not to mention the many unfinished songs and lyric idea, right? Like, out of the 60 finished songs, fully fleshed out, there are 12 that I like. I wouldn't put all of these out, so I started playing it for my musicians. Which ones do you like? Which ones do you like? Because I need, and sometimes you need to bring in somebody else to tell you what works and what doesn't. But I already knew the 4 songs that were going to be on the EP. I just wanted somebody else to be like, yeah, that song. None of the songs that I chose for the EP were songs that people liked. They were like, we like this song, and they liked the songs, but they were they're music people, and so it depends on your audience too. Like, I'm a lyrics and poetry are what I want to do, more songwriter than poetry, but so my thing is like, are you listening to the words? That's the important part. Are you listening? And they're like, no, I'm listening to like the chord changes and the chord structure and like how, and I'm like, I don't care about that. I literally don't give a shit about chord structure or like the way that the note is passing this one. Like, all of that just serves the words. Like, I couldn't care less. And people are offended by that, especially like people that really love music. They're like, what do you mean you don't care about the arrangement or the way that you're playing? I'm like, I play it like this because I'm not a very good musician. Like, I'm legitimately, like your most average guitar player. But are the words, does it fit? Does the melody fit? So it's always me raving on the side. Are you listening to the words? They're like, we think we are. We don't know what they mean.
And on that same thing where you said, what is it, like some people are just like, they're going to care more about like the structure, they're going to care more about this. Like, there's always like, everyone has like their own like specific taste just so much. That's the other thing that like I've been messing with forever on my application, is just the fact that like I've written 200 plus poems in the past like 3 years, and so out of those I had a stack of 20 that were okay, and I have to send in 10 that are the ones like minimum that I think maybe they'll like. But each school, there are people who are like, we care a lot about people who vary from the structure. I don't vary from the structure very often, and so I'm like, and then other times it's like, oh, we care a lot if just usually there's like a cadence or usually like a subject matter or something that I'm not sure if the schools are super aware of or not, but I'm like, a lot of the people who come out of here, they all tend to like write sounding this kind of way. And I'm like, do I fit into this kind of way? And do I want to send something that sounds more like these people? But then I'm like, I have these images, and these are the things that I tend to write about, and gotta just send those in. And they may not like those at all. Like people who write more like traditional poems. And then I think one that I ended up keeping was one that was about teeth.
Of course. You wrote like 200 of those. Gotta include a teeth poem.
I don't know what the deal with that was, but it was one that I had written at the museum like earlier this year for one of my classes, and like it starts off like lungs, tongues, and sticky gums, and it's like talking about like a little girl like playing arts and crafts with like blood and like human guts and stuff. And so
I love that opening line too, catchy as hell.
So that's one of the ones that I'm thinking about putting in there, but I also have like this really pretty one that I think is going to be like the intro one. So they're going to be like, oh, that's kind of nice. And then they're going to like turn like 2 poems over, and then they're going to read that. And then they're going to be like, what?
Lungs, tongues, and sticky gums. That
I think
not
it's
only
lungs,
the alliteration.
tongues, sticky gums, and soft tissue. I think that's how it starts.
The three openers are so, oh man, that opening three line, just because it's such a comforting rhyme. It almost sounds like a child's game, like.
Yeah.
So I like, that's really sing-songy. I really, really like that.
It's how that picture looked to me. I think I have it on Instagram with both of them, because we were supposed to be at the museum like writing about a piece of art, and I ended up writing about a bunch of them, and one of them was literally like, it has this like bright pink background, and then it has like these little drawings, and then it has what looks like just confetti everywhere, and then like these trees, and there's just like a lot happening. But to me it looked like kind of like disturbed arts and crafts of like a tiny child, and then I was like, oh, what would this kid be writing about, or like what would they be imagining this as? And so it was kind of,
that's why I love poets, because you can go to a museum and be inspired by that and write a song about that, whereas I feel like people, or write a poem about that, whereas I feel like people are like, oh, songs have to be super personal about your personal life. But like for me, like I'll read something, or like I'll read something you wrote, or something that, like Reckless Woman came out of that poetry collection that she released, and I wanted to write a song for her, even though it was my story. Like I lived through something similar. She was so wildly reckless, at least the experience that she wrote about in her book, just so reckless, but she didn't care. She was living her full life, and I wanted to write a song about that. And so you're like, you write a song, I was inspired by this poetry collection. It's like, oh my God, she's such a brainiac. Oh my God. You know what I mean? Like there's something so analytical about that. But it's like, no, I'm just inspired by things other than my personal life. And I feel like I'm allowed to write about whatever I want. And so people don't like that. I feel like that isn't just that. I feel like it's not, maybe people do like that, but it doesn't make sense to them, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, for example, like the Taylor Swift model, and I love T Swift, so like this is like no baggage, but like she'll live for 2 years, right? And then write about the 2 years, live for another 2, write about the 2. Whereas I feel like songwriting is like this is my entire life. Like, this is when I was born, this is where I am right now. Hopefully I'm a little bit better than, when I was born. I'm not here, but like, I can literally pick any point and write about that point. Whatever, however small it is, I can write about that, because even if it's not in chronological order, I can write about those things, and try not to be super jaded, right? Because it's different when you write a song when you're fresh, you've just lived it, than when you have 5 years and you're like, I've made it out alive, I didn't think I was going to survive, you know what I mean? Like, So whereas I feel like poets are like, oh, I just had this feeling about being a kid, I'm going to write about that now, and include that in a collection of poems, that comes out 5 years after that or whatever. That just feels more freeing. So I take that approach to songwriting too.
I feel like there should be more of a blurring between all of them, because I feel like there definitely is, like, some people like put stuff on a pedestal when it's like this like personal thing that like you wrote, and some people just want to be like, I wrote this story in a song and it's not a true story, it was just a story that I thought up and I wanted to write a song about that. And I'm like, I feel like that's fine. I feel like wanting to write like a song that's like a short story, or doing a painting that's like either hyper realistic or like super cartoony in like another version, like, you can be as real with it and as literal or as like non as you want. And that was another thing that when I started writing poetry, people didn't know which things were real and which things weren't, because I was very much like mixing between like stories that I was telling and then between like actual things that like happened that I was writing about. And people were like, wait, you said this thing and then you said this thing, and I'm like, I can be like different people.
Yeah, and I feel like definitely, I mean 100%. And people are always like, wait, but what? I'm like, yeah, like, I write story songs. I write songs about, and I tell all my friends, after we've been friends for a while, I'm like, I will write a song about you as if you were me. Not as me, I'm the friend sympathizing about you, but I'm you. Because I come from a theater training. I remember writing a play. Like, I come from that background of, I can literally be anybody. So if I like your story enough, or if I like, the shoes that you're wearing, I'm going to put them on and I'm going to write a song while I'm in them, and people almost feel betrayed by that, because they're like, why do you want to write about not yourself? And I'm like, I'm not like the most interesting person in the world. Like, there are some love experiences, things that I haven't lived through. Like, I'm married to my college sweetheart. We've been together 7 years last month. You know what I mean? Like, but I didn't go through like the multiple breakups. I mean, I did with him, but like, you know what I mean? I didn't date several people, and like there's and the way that we broke up wasn't, my sprinklers are going off, aren't the same way that my friends broke up. And so there's so much range, and if you limit yourself just to yourself, then you're not writing the best work. But on the flip side, as an actor, right, I'm like, I want to be able to tell it from the truth, and so I have to think of something that's happened to me that's similar, that I can sing about, or so that when I sing it, it feels authentic. That's kind of what I want it to be like, because I can write, and I'm sure you do this in poetry too, where you write in a voice that feels authentic to you. And so, like, there's this Carly Rae Jepsen song. Oh my God, can't remember what it's the last song on her record. But I took that song, it's a breakup song, but I felt it so vividly. And my twin sister was just like, why do you feel that song so much? Like, you and Max have never truly broken up like this. And I'm like, this is like the breakup song when I stopped doing theater and I broke up with theater. That's what the song means to me. And she's like, that's such an odd, like, existential place to sing a breakup song about. But, like, that's what I feel like. You have to be able to, even if it's a story that you came up with in your mind, there's something in there, there's like a little seed that is you, and that's what's going to guide you through it. So it's like a little bit of both, I feel like.
You just need that one little like sprig of emotion to like get anything out. And then
exactly. Yeah, when I was in high school, I was like really robotic. Like, I mean, like, I was friendly and blah blah blah, but I wasn't very into my emotions. I would say the same thing through college, where I was just like, like, I have emotions, whatever. But like, whatever. When I started songwriting, I explored all these emotions, and how you were talking about, like, with poetry, like, oh man, like, if I'm having a writer's block, it's because I'm probably going through something that I want to write about, but I don't feel like I can write about yet. You gotta like pick at it. Yeah. So that's kind of how I feel when I write a song. I'm like, there's something that I need to write, but I can't get it out. So yeah, I feel like I've never been so emotional, and it feels volatile a little bit to be like, oh, I'm crying now. Oh, now I'm sad, or I'm joyous. But if I feel like I've never been more authentic with what I'm feeling. It makes people uncomfortable now, because like I'll post online, I'm like, I'm feeling sad. Like, there are no barriers. Or like, I'll be like, this is why I haven't been posting. Like, there's the reason. And people sometimes are like, wow, that's like so much. And it's like, but it feels true to me, because I spent so many years being closed off that now I'm in my 20s and I just don't give a shit. I'm like, you right? It's like, I don't, like, what do I have to lose? What, you're gonna unfollow me on Instagram because it got too real? Like, there are better things you could be doing with your life. But if you decide to stay, then you might see yourself reflected in something. But I feel like everybody goes through these things, but nobody's talking about them.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one thing that I think I really like fell into with like just like posting stuff online, was like the fact that I was like, wow, this whole time I like haven't talked to anybody about anything. And, like, now I'm, like, making videos talking about things, and I'm writing poetry, and I'm making all this stuff, and, like, sharing it with lots of people, and, like, being really open. And, like, for the first, like, 20 years of my life, I didn't talk to anybody about any of these things.
Exactly.
So, like, now I'm like, well, take everything. I hope you enjoy this.
Yeah,
sorry if I scare you.
Right, you didn't come to Vegas to play, but I don't care. Here you go. Here's a strip club. Instead of dollar bills, you're getting emotions.
Yep, it's like take the normal me day to day, take the I'm kind of losing my mind, the I'm not okay right now.
Yeah, no, like, I'm a pretty, like, if you see me right now, like, I'm a pretty chipper, like, ooh, I'm so excited about life, but, I'm constantly fighting with my brain, it feels like, to do things, like, I've just put so many roadblocks on the way, that are literally just my brain, like, there's nothing stopping me from doing things but my brain, and so, I don't know, it feels good to let it out in a space where, you'll get a DM from somebody and they'll be like, I know exactly what that feels at, dude. Or like, I know exactly, like, or you can listen to this song. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's something so personal about a DM, even though you've never met this person and they're from Australia, you know what I mean? Like, there's something so personal about, it feels like a community of friends. Especially now that I'm in Hawaii and I don't have the support group that I did back home. Like it even feels even more of a necessity to be online. Like this is probably one of the best conversations I've had in a long time. I've been in Hawaii 6 months, and not everybody's open to being emotionally open in public. But I feel like online people are kind of like, yeah, I'm through with like, I don't want to get to know your favorite color. Like, what did you dream about last night? What is your biggest fear?
Literally. You skip over all like the simplistic stuff and you dive like deep like immediately.
Yeah, like literally we like this is the first time we've ever talked to each other, and like we were already deep, like 100 miles per hour, like minute one, you know what I mean? Like we didn't even say our names or anything, and I feel like that's really sweet. And that's really wonderful, because that's what leads to like the quote unquote the truth, which is what I feel like as like writers, you really want to write about. You really want to write about the truth, whatever that means to you. And for me, it's like emotional truth. Like I don't want to lie anymore about how I feel, because I did that a lot for a lot of people, so they didn't have to worry about me. And now I'm like, it's okay if I'm upset. Like, nobody's gonna die. You know what I mean? Nobody died when I was a teenager. I turned 24 last March. Right as literally the week before I moved to Hawaii, I turned 24. So I spent my last, 24 has been the craziest year of my entire life. But I've never been more free, and I've never been more scared, and I've never failed more. But I've also never tried more. So I don't know. I wish I could go back to my 20-year-old self and be like, you're gonna be okay. Like, nobody died. You turned 22 and you didn't die. You know what I mean? Like, I had my whole life mapped out till I was 21, and then I explain it like this. And you like video games. So, okay, Pokemon, you know how you play the full A badges, right? So the A badges are like you going to school in high school, right, and you're going to college, and then you do the Elite Four, and that's like your last year of college. You're like fighting it out, and you graduate. Then all of a sudden, the storyline's over. Now you get to choose what you're going to do after that, because you still have the game. You've only played for 30 hours, but this game can literally hold like 999 hours, right? So like, what are you going to do? You can fill in the Pokedex. You can like fight all the people that you didn't fight. You can like, like breed Pokemon or breed all the berries. Like there's so many side quests that you avoided during your first round because you were so focused on like, I have to finish, I have to beat the Elite Four. And then you get out and you're like, oh, I guess now whatever my favorite thing was that I didn't get to do while I was playing the main game, I actually have all the time to do now. That's I'm on that side of the fence now. You're on the Elite Four phase.
I'm like trying to like battle it out at the end.
Yeah, you're like, you got 5 battles to go. These guys have like level 60 Pokemon. Like you're out there training to make sure you're gonna pass. So that's what I tell everybody that graduates. I have a lot of my friends who recently graduated, and I tell them that because that analogy helped my parents understand why I was doing so many things. I'm like, Mom, I love Pokemon, right? It's like my favorite game. If I could sell my body and my brain and be guaranteed a life in which I could live in the Pokemon universe, I would be okay. Like, that's my dream. I want to live in the Pokemon universe, and I want to but I want to be friends with Pokemon. I want to battle. Anyway, 10-year-old me never left. But, you know, like, that's how I explained it to my parents. Is like, now I'm in the spot where, you know, like, I have a job, I have money, I'm paying rent, but that doesn't mean I have to die inside. You know, now I'm gonna, you know, finish the Pokedex, or I'm gonna plant some berries, and figure out what I like to do and spend the rest of the 960 hours that I have left on this game. You know, and that for me happened to be songwriting. That's where I'm spending my hours and making online content, whether that's photos or videos, or, you know, because music is what gets me up in the morning, and, you know, what makes me want to live. And so, I don't know, right now you're going to just make it feel that you like forever. Once you get out, you'll be like, you know, I want to write short stories for the rest of my life, or I want to write poetry for the rest of my life, and I'm going to run a super aesthetic Instagram page until I get enough followers and pull over me, you know, like, just like, sell your poetry books that way. Like, yes, now there's so much range, like, you can build everything yourself, and that's really daunting, but at the same time, you can build everything yourself. You know, and I feel like you get that because you do everything yourself, like, you know. So, and you're going to school full time. Like, I'm just like, she doesn't sleep ever.
But there's just, like, that analogy was, like, so good, just, like, thinking about, because that's exactly how I think about just, like, getting out of school, is just, like, you have, like, this nice, like, void outside of, like, there's all these things, but what are you gonna do with any of them? Which, like, path do you choose now that there isn't, like, this, like, set path, like, before you? And it's, like, so strange, and, like, definitely that's how I've had to also explain it to, like, my mom and my family, is, like, I could get, like, a good paying job where, like, I could, like, get a house, and, like, I could live comfortably, and, like, I could have, like, I have nothing on the weekends. I could go out and, like, hang out with friends. Like, that could be, like, the rest of my life. But I don't want to do those things, and I want to just, like, be making stuff, and maybe, like, just kind of be scraping by, and just have enough money for, like, rent and food. And I'm okay with that, as long as I'm, like, happy with what I'm doing. And so, it's definitely just, like, trying to, like, convey that, and then, like, trying to get yourself to believe it. Also, a lot of the time.
You know, this month has been my first month as a starving artist. I haven't been starving since I was an undergrad. Like, an undergrad, I was like, I had $20 a week to eat. So, you know, luckily 99-cent store existed, but, you know, it was hard. You know, but I got used to making money, and I made pretty good money for a 21-year-old, 22-year-old, 23-year-old. Now I'm married. My husband, bless his heart, is being like, you know, we are making enough money for you to do this and try to make this a thing. You know, because as a teenager, I never really had, and I feel like people jump on the bandwagon as teenagers because all they have to do is go to school, and then they have all these hours to kind of make stuff that I didn't really have until now. But, you know, it sucks. Starving sucks. Like, right now, I'm like, I have $100 in my bank account, you know, I have $200 in my bank account, which is going to pay my Adobe subscription for a couple months. And I know that I'll have the money, but it's still like, you know, like, and I have this scheduling service for Instagram because that's kind of my social media that I'm focusing on. You know, things like that. Like, there are things that you have to, but I couldn't be happier. I couldn't be happier. Not only am I living with, like, the love of my life after 7 years of not being together, like, I'm making art for the first time, and that's all I have to worry about. You know, check in with me 6 months from now when I'm legitimately, you know, when I've run out of money, out of personal funds, right? Personal funds. But hopefully by then I'll have some gigs that I can play around the island, or, you know, either we'll be moved to a different state and I can find something else there. But yeah, like, there were things that and this I was thinking for you, like, you know, luckily for you, you decided to change midway through your major and be like, I found my path afterwards. Let's learn about that. Whereas for me, by the time I had figured out what I wanted to do after I was done. I had 5 months left of school. And I couldn't take like music production classes, which I think would have been so helpful for me, you know. So now I'm doing a lot more on my own. But I feel like, you know, you found your berries. You know, you found that you're going to be pounding berries for a while, and I feel like that's really cool. And the fact that, you know, and I think that, well, at least from what I've seen in the last maybe 6 months of following you, 6 or 8 months, you know, you've grown a lot. And I feel like, I'm just like, yeah, I guess you do grow a lot when you constantly post your progress, right? Like, I looked at the first video that I posted, and like, yeah, I've grown a lot as an artist in the last year that I've decided to share my stuff online, and I wasn't just playing at like open mics and trying not to tell anybody to find me in the real world, you know. So I think there's comfort in that you have these 960 hours to play. And you know, maybe I'll peak at 40, but you know, I gotta peak sometime, you know what I mean? And I guess that's really comforting too.
Yeah.
That you will make it if you work at it hard enough and long enough, and you're smart, and this is like a thing that you feel like that you're good at, that nobody else is as good at as you, and it doesn't have to be like everybody else. Then stick with it. That's what I'm telling myself. It comforts me at night when I'm sleeping and I wake up really early to work on something that gives me no money right now. You know what I mean? But what are you going to do? If that's what life is, and that's what it is for me right now. My mom luckily can't speak English very well, because if she were listening to this, she'd be pissed. She'd be so mad.
I'm so glad that like my mom like came around eventually. She was just like, you're gonna stop being a biology major, and like at the time I had wanted to apply to the film school here and like go into like film, which is like I think even I don't know if that was a more volatile thing in her eyes, like moving to like LA and working in the movie industry than like now becoming a poet maybe is. I don't know which of those is more daunting in her eyes, but like
I feel like this. Oh, sorry, keep going. Sorry.
At this point, I feel like she's just kind of like, okay, I feel like you'll be able to survive.
Right, and like as a poet, like at least you'll stay at home, right? Like as a poet, you don't have to move.
Oh my god, the amount of times, I think that's definitely the thing. The amount of times since I have said that like I want to like pursue poetry and like go to grad school, that my mom's just like, so you're gonna end up coming back to San Antonio, and like you're gonna live with me, and you're gonna start teaching.
Right? Yeah, I feel like my mom was devastated when I moved, and I'm like, Mom, I'm married. You know, like it's very like Hispanic culture for my mom was like, you know, you stay home till you're married. I'm married, Mom. Like I have to. She just feels like almost betrayed and heartbroken by that, and I get that. I mean, she only has 2 kids. She's an immigrant, so she doesn't have a lot. She doesn't have like a support system like if we had stayed back home. Or was her home. I consider the U.S. to be my home. You know, there would have been like so much family, and like, you know, if I'd left, like, you know, she still would have her mom and her family, you know. Whereas here, like, we are her family, and now I'm not there, and so she's like, you know, you know, I just wish you'd come back. And when is because he's a Marine Corps, my husband. You know, when is he over? Like, you guys could move back to California. Like, at least we'd be in the same state. So it's always like a thing for her. So if you do decide to move, I'm sure your mom will be just as distressed, because your last name is Robles.
Yes.
Like. So your mom will be either just as distressed or a little bit less, maybe. I don't know your cultural background.
Yeah. What is it? Like I grew up with my mom's family, which is all Hispanic, and so it's like,
oh gosh.
Yeah. I'm the only one who has left the city not married like for generations.
Yeah.
So it's like my cousin Nina just moved to Washington, but it's because her husband's in the military, and like they moved up there, but she is married, and like she moved up there.
Right,
and so like and all my other like cousins and everyone else in town, and like my mom and my Thea and my Theo, like everyone else grew up in San Antonio, and like all my cousins are in San Antonio, and like everybody's in San Antonio. Like, you don't escape San Antonio. It's like the joke in our family. It's like, you don't make it out of there. So that's why I really wanted to like get out for college. so that I could like inch my way out like slowly. So it's like that's like one of the daunting things of like if I end up going back after college, it kind of feels like I'm gonna be stuck there. So I really don't want to be.
Look, I feel that when I went to college up in Thousand Oaks. It's like 40 minutes away, and my tagline for this was, close enough that I could bring my laundry, far enough away where they couldn't see me every day. So it was like a good middle. But then after college, I moved back with my parents for 3 years. It was like I was like, I'm 24 years old, and like it almost feels like I still have to ask for permission when. I'm paying half the rent. The power dynamic didn't change even if I was an adult. So if you can stay out, I would recommend staying out, just because all the independence you worked your life or your last 4 years to get, it almost like you recede back to your high school self. I know that I did.
Yeah. I know definitely. What is it? My older cousin, she's 2 years older than me, so she's 24. She has a baby who's almost 2 now, but
oh my goodness.
what is it? When she had her baby, her and like her boyfriend were like living in the house, and so like she's still living there right now, but it's very much still like it's her mom's house. Her mom's the one who's like working, like she's paying for everything, and so it still feels like these are like her rules, and so like they're trying to like get out of the house, like have their own place, but like. It didn't occur to me until very recently that, like, my cousin's, like, never lived on her own before, and, like, they've never done that. Like, even my mom went straight from being, living with my grandparents to living with my dad for, like, the very short time that they were married, and then, like, living with me. So it was, like, my mom has only ever lived with other people. She's never lived how I have alone, which is, like, a very strange concept to me. But it's very, like, interesting just, like, thinking about, like, oh, wow, like, this... I am in a very privileged place of, like, getting to, like, set, like, my own rules and, like, do my own things. And, like, I don't think I want to give that up.
Yeah, I know what I didn't live alone until, like, my freshman year of college. I had a hard time sleeping. I'm a twin, so it's even, like, even if I had my own room, I didn't have my own room. I was a twin. I shared my birthday and my birthday cake, and, right, like, it happens when you're a twin, but, like, my husband had duty the other night, and he was gone 24 hours, and for the first time ever, I was alone for 24 hours. Like, I hadn't done this since I was in college. I was like, what do I do? Like, like, right now, I'm all alone. My husband works, like, at 5 a.m., comes back at 4:30, like, and I'm usually awake from that point on, because I'm trying to do stuff, because I'm Hawaii Standard Time, so I'm 3 hours behind from LA, 6 hours from the East Coast, so... Dang. So it's like if I want to post something and hit the largest audience, I have to think about, like, those posting times. Because, like, I just got to Hawaii. It's not like I have my large audience. My audience is not from here. So it's like, wow, so much time spent by myself. Like, there's only so many podcasts and so much music and so much TV and so much scrolling on your phone you can do before you're like, I have to talk with myself. Like, I have to. I'm like my only company. You know what I mean? So it's like good and bad, I feel like. I definitely slept with a nightlight on, though, because I was like, I'm going to die. I'm all alone. But you're probably, like, super chill. You're like,
I'm pretty used to it now. I think my mom, like, was even more disoriented than, like, I was, because my mom, like, now she lives alone for, like, the first time. And
oh,
so,
my
like,
God.
My mom had to go through, like, that experience of being like, what's going on? And so, since my cousin probably is going to move out, like, later this year, my youngest cousin is starting college, and she's moving into an apartment in, like, 2 weeks.
Oh, my God.
So my aunt's going to go from living with, like, 6 other people in the house to having just herself in the house. So that's going to, like, probably mess her up, too.
Your mom and her should just move in together. That's what I would do.
I don't think they could handle each other that much, because they haven't lived together since they were kids, so, I mean...
Oh, my God.
They'd be at each other all the time.
See, it's like you create your own space, especially when you're a parent, right? You set all the rules, and all of a sudden there's no one to follow them. Like, no rules to follow but yourself.
Like, what's going on?
Yeah, right? Well, I'm happy that you were able to get an apartment, though, because that really builds character, especially as a girl.
Loan money.
Oh my God.
Lovely debt.
Yo, I feel that.
I got no scholarships or anything, so it's all just the nice little hole that I've accepted in my life, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I'm sure you've heard this. You majored in poetry with how much debt? You know what? To those people, suck it. You know
It's
what?
like, this was an investment in my life that I guess I wanted. I paid for my college years. I wanted this experience. Is that worth probably $20,000 I'm gonna have to pay off afterwards? Yeah, that's fine, I guess.
Yeah. It's so cheap. You said $20,000 for 4 years. I went to school where tuition was $50,000 a year.
Huh. Well, that's not my tuition. My tuition is covered by grants because
Okay.
my mom does make little enough money, and the fact that like I only do work study does cover that much. So that's like 10 a year, I think, is how much UT is because it's a state school. And then, yeah, so the apartment actually cost me the most. Apartment and like books.
Yeah, I went to a small private school, and they paid me the most money. So I didn't end up. I think I ended up with about $20,000 in debt after I left. I pawned everything that I owned while I was going through school to pay it off because I didn't have I couldn't take out loans. So I pawned everything, and then once I got my job, my mom, my sister, and I, we kind of bought it all back. So yeah, my mom and my parents pawned everything that they owned, like literally anything they could put their hands on. They were like, "Gotta pawn this, gotta pay the kids' tuition," because we're twins, so we were both going to the same school at the same time. My poor parents. Well, we got it back, but I know friends who were in loans for $50,000 for 1 year of school.
It happens to a lot of people. School's not cheap.
Yeah, and I'm just like, how hard is it to get a college degree? You know what I mean? Like, and not only is it hard mentally and emotionally and physically, but financially, it's like everything. It could ruin a family. It's going to get really personal, but I feel like, my parents are finally divorcing. It should have happened a long time ago, but I feel like college really ruptured it. It might have been salvaged before college, but there was no way that after the college experience, with everything that we had to suffer to get, a measly piece of paper, which I'm now not using because I'm being a musician and I didn't major in any of those things. And so I feel there's a guilt in that, I think, to be like, I'm being selfish for the first time and doing something for me instead of the pressure that my parents put on me. But yeah, college is very hard on families that don't have a lot of money, but it's still an expectation somehow. Otherwise, you're a failure,
I think I definitely felt that when I was like, especially when I decided to change majors, just because of the fact that I'm like, my mom raised me like all on her own, and she's gotten me like this far to do all this stuff. Like, shouldn't I major in something useful so that I can like take care of her and pay her back and make sure she has like all this nice stuff that like she couldn't have when she was taking care of me when I was growing up, and like
exactly.
And then being like, I'm gonna do poetry, and like thinking like that like guilt of being like, how am I gonna take care of my mom when she's older? How am I gonna do these things? And it's just like, oh. But then
I'm living. Yeah. My parents are older. My dad just turned 64, and my mom is turning 60 this year. And so my parents are older than most. I mean, I'm only 24. But like, right now, it's like I just want my parents to remain healthy, and I want to be able to help them in any way that I can. But my parents should be retiring, but they can't. They can't retire here. My dad's actually moving back to Chile next month. To start getting retirement over there. And my mom's kind of like, that's ended, so we're not going back together. My twin sister just started grad school. You're married, like, where do I fit? And so it's been hard to see that happen, because like when you're a kid, I feel like, and parents get divorced, like, yeah, it's like it causes a lot of pain, but you don't really understand why. Whereas like as an adult, you're like, oh wow, like now I get like every single aspect of what happened. It's got very personal very fast, but it's just been on my mind. I'm just like, yeah, sorry about that. But I feel like that just informs a lot of my work, because I know that they're unhappy, and I'm like, I don't want that for me. Mm-hmm. I want to have a good marriage, I want to make it work. I want to make it last, and I want to be happy. And I want to do something, my parents gave their whole life away, and now they're reaching an age in which they're not even happy with what they did.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that. And I feel like that informed a lot of my decisions on what to do. Is that selfish? Yeah, but I'm a millennial, so I'm going to be labeled as selfish no matter what I do, right?
True.
I was thinking, like, I don't know what she's going to ask me. I mean, how do you explain to somebody how to write a song? It's like crack. But I think you probably know what that feels like as well, because you write poetry, and I feel like it's kind of similar to that, to birth something that didn't exist. That's what I always say.
You're literally giving birth to just this strange thing that came out of nowhere.
Right. And that's also really comforting to me, because I'm like, they can hate me, but this wouldn't exist without me. Is it good or bad? I don't know. Like, sometimes it doesn't even matter. I made it. And if I didn't exist, this piece of art that I made wouldn't exist, regardless of whether it's good or not. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I added to the human experience, but I hope I did.
Same. That's all I ever hope some days. I'm like, is any of this any kind of good? Does it matter if it's not? Just people are consuming it, and that is what is happening, and that is it. And even if it's just me that is like the only person who enjoys it, is that meaningful enough? It should be.
Yeah, and I think the struggle with meaningfulness, and I fear that so much, especially because I as a musician, it's like so crowded. The space is already really crowded, and then online it's even more crowded than it was ever before. But it's like, part of me is like, is it even worth the investment that my husband's making and I'm making into myself? Like, is it going to pan out? I was asking him yesterday, and he said something really sweet. He was like, I'm just so happy that I'm able to give you the opportunity, because people like us don't ever really get that chance. And so I'm like, all right. So even if I don't succeed, the fact that I'm already doing this, maybe if we have kids, I've always worried that if I have kids and I don't succeed, right, I'm going to be envious that my kids will have it so much easier than I ever did, and they'll be successful. But I think that comes from the fact that I'm not a parent. I feel like that changes when you're a parent, and you're like, I love these little shits because they're my little shits, and I want them to be happy and successful,
That's mostly what I've heard from people.
Right, like little shits, but my little shits. But right now I feel like I'm not in a place to like have kids, and because I'd be really envious of everything that they will have that I never even dreamed about having. Something as simple as a Social Security at birth, like I didn't get one until I was like 20, like things like that. So yeah, I'm gonna try and make it work. It's only been a month, like I can't really judge myself that hard, like, you know what I mean? I'm gonna I'm trying. I'm really trying to like play the game, do the ball, try and create an aesthetically pleasing Instagram feed, and things like that simple.
You gotta let yourself like feel out the space, just like breathe in it, swim around in it, try new things.
Yeah, and I feel like with internet, people are expecting things so quickly. Like people don't take the time to just like, without feeling guilty, to just like process. Like, I just went through a really big experience. Like, this is a really big commitment. What does that mean to me? I feel like people don't take the time. I try and journal as much as I can. I actually have a bullet journal. That's what I use, because I feel like I can customize it, and it serves as an agenda. And it's just, I don't know. I had like a mini breakdown earlier this year because I was moving here, and I was really unhappy with my job that I had at the time. I was working still for the hospital, and I was really grateful. Like, don't get me wrong, like super grateful, but unhappy because I was working here by myself, and I was used to an office environment, and I just felt kind of like I didn't belong to myself. I remember just crying, and I wrote that down, and now I'm like in a completely different place. But because I wrote that down, I can go back and read it and remember, oh my God, the madness, like the fever dream of not being able to stop crying, which is something I never allowed myself to do, to just literally just cry and Did it make me feel better? No, I cried for like 3 hours. My husband was like, okay, we're gonna drive around the island. And I was like, I'm just gonna play you my favorite songs and talk to you why they inspire me so much, just crying. And he was trying to handle it, right? He's doing the best that he can. But now I look back and it makes me laugh. Like, I'm like, oh my God, you're so dramatic. But in that moment, it was so real. So I don't know. I feel like now I'm just allowing myself to feel things. This is a long tangent, but writing it down, taking the moment to understand that even if you're not making anything, you're still worth something.
It's just like really just like comforting to like hear all this. Somehow it's just like really like soothing to like hear someone else like say it.
Yeah, there's something really soothing about somebody else being like this guy. I was listening to him. He's like amazing guy at the conference. He's like, I did it for 15 years before I even had anything. And those people to that were like, oh, no, but I was so comforted by 15 years. I was like, oh my God, like, I've been doing this at most 2 weeks, right? That I've been like a full-time musician, right? He's like, I was a full-time musician for 15 years before anything happened. Like, I've been doing it for 2 weeks. The fact that I'm not supposed to be peaking right now is the most comforting thing I've ever heard in my entire life. But everyone around me is like, oh my God, there's so much time still, like, blah, blah, blah. But, I'm comforted by the length of time and that I'm not behind. Because I always felt like I think you feel this too. Like, you always feel like you're behind. Like, you missed the big thing when everyone was jumping on it, and you missed it, and now you're running behind it. You're trying to get on.
I'm always like rushing to like catch up, and then I hear like a poet who like comes and they say like they didn't publish their first like collection of books until like 30 years after they were writing things. And so I was like, you were like 54 when you published your first thing, and then I was just like, I have so much time.
Yeah, like I can still figure out my voice, figure out how I want to sound, figure out. I never wanted to peak in my 20s because then everybody would always remember me as young. And I wanted to be more than young. So I don't know. I feel like I hope that the way that I set up my career as a musician will allow me to age, because women don't really get that. So I hope that I will be allowed to age. Because I didn't peak at 16, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't peak at 24, I'm not peaking anytime soon. I still have so much to learn and so much to do, but I don't know. I'm comforted by aging and getting old. Most people don't like that. I'm like, no, that's great. That means that there's so much more that I can write about, so much more that I can live.
No, I'm like, I want to be like a gray-haired old lady writing about teeth. Like, these are new goals in life.
Right? Like, yeah, like, I everything feels so intense when you're in your 20s, and especially for me, because I feel like I was very sheltered. Like, my whole life was work and home, work and home, work and home, and now I'm living in the gray spaces that I never got to swim in. And as I'm deep, everything is so intense and so volatile. So like, when the time you're 50, like right now I'm saying like I don't give a fuck, but like when I'm 50, I'm really not gonna care. I'm just gonna live and exist. You know what I mean? I'm just gonna be like, you know what? This is art. Fuck you. Like, you want to put that somewhere, great. If not, you know what? I'll play on the corner. Like, I don't care. Like somebody will want to listen. So I don't know. When I was 20, when I just turned 20, there was this comic of this musician just practicing violin in his room. And he looked so miserable, and then he had an idea. He got a pen, and he drew all over the walls. And you couldn't see what he was drawing, but you could see what he was drawing all over the walls in the comic. And then he was playing. Then he started playing again. He was so happy. And all around the walls, he just drew ears. Because that's what would make him practice better if somebody was listening. And so he, in that space, he gave himself ears. And I was like, that just really touched me. I was like, huh. That's kind of what the internet is, because you're posting into the void. You don't know who's listening, but somebody's got to be.
Yeah.
You know?
If you would like to be a future guest on the Creative Nonsense podcast, please fill out the survey in the description below.